Aisha was no stranger to hardship. Raised in a small Kenyan village, she moved to Nairobi to escape the poverty that had shackled her family for generations. She dreamed of a better life, a life where her siblings wouldn't sleep hungry and her parents wouldn't toil endlessly in their small shamba. Her days were spent working as a waitress in a busy city cafe. It was there, amidst the clatter of plates and the hum of conversations, that she met George. He was a grey-haired foreigner with an aura of wealth and power. He came in often, sitting in her section, always leaving large tips and throwing her compliments she'd never heard before. "You have the most beautiful smile," he said one evening, handing her a wad of cash. "Someone as lovely as you shouldn't be working here." Aisha hesitated. "I'm just doing what I can to help my family." "Well," George said, leaning closer, "I could change your life, if you let me." When Aisha called her parents to tell them about George, she framed him as her ticket out of poverty. "Mama, he's generous. He wants to help us," Aisha said. Fatuma was skeptical at first, but changed her tone when Aisha sent money for school fees and food. "Maybe God has answered our prayers," Fatuma told her husband. It wasn't until George visited the village months later that the truth emerged. The family was shocked to see that George wasn't just older. He could be Aisha's grandfather. But the promise of wealth dulled their judgment. "Mama, he can take me abroad," Aisha pleaded. "I'll earn money and send it back to you. Imagine finishing the house in just a year." Fatuma hesitated but eventually nodded. "If he treats you well, age doesn't matter." Kibet, now struggling as a boda rider in Nairobi, heard about the marriage through a mutual friend. Heartbroken, he confronted Aisha before the wedding. "Aisha, are you sure about this?" he asked. "You don't know him. This could end badly." "Badly?" Aisha scoffed. "At least he has something to offer. What can you give me, Kibet? A ride on your bike?" The words stung, but Kibet said no more. After the wedding, George took Aisha to his home abroad. At first, life was luxurious. Lavish dinners, shopping sprees, and extravagant gifts. Aisha sent photos back to her family, fueling their pride and hope. But the fairy tale soon crumbled. George's true colors emerged. He became controlling, locking her inside the house while he went out for hours. He took her passport, claiming it was for safekeeping. "You don't need to go anywhere without me," he said sternly. Over time, George revealed his darker intentions. He introduced her to his friends, wealthy men who paid for her company. At first, Aisha refused, but George threatened her. "You think I brought you here for free? You owe me," he snarled. With no passport and no way to contact her family, Aisha was trapped. One night, during a party George hosted, Aisha saw her chance. While everyone was distracted, she slipped out and ran. She found refuge at a women's shelter where she begged for help. George, furious, reported her as an undocumented immigrant. Authorities found her and deported her back to Kenya with nothing but the clothes on her back. The long flight from abroad felt endless, each minute heavier than the last. When Aisha finally stepped off the plane and into Nairobi's bustling airport, she barely recognized herself. Her eyes were hollow from sleepless nights, her face gaunt from the stress, and her heart, once full of dreams, was now weighed down with regret. The luxurious life she had once envisioned was gone, and she had nothing to show for it but empty promises and scars. As she walked through the crowded streets, Aisha felt the distance between her and the life she had left behind. The city, which had once seemed like the gateway to her freedom, now felt cold and foreign. She had returned with nothing, no money, no passport, no dignity. Her parents greeted her with mixed emotions, relief that she was back, but also a quiet shame in their hearts. They had sent her off with high hopes, believing she would send back money to finish the house and change their lives. Instead, she had returned broken, a mere shadow of the ambitious girl they had once sent off.
"My daughter, I don't know what to say, but I'm glad you're home," her mother cried. "I'm sorry, Mama. I thought I was helping. I thought I was building a better life for us. But I was wrong," she answered. Her father, Mzee Kamau, sat quietly, the weight of the failed dream heavy on his shoulders. The stone house they had once imagined was still half finished, and their life had returned to the same struggles. The community had begun to whisper, knowing that George's promises had turned into empty words.
Weeks passed, and Aisha sank into a deep sorrow. She avoided people, ashamed of the scars she couldn't explain. Her heart longed for the simple joys she had taken for granted, the laughter of her siblings, the warmth of her village, the calm of the baobab tree. Then one afternoon, as she walked through the marketplace, she saw him, Kibet. He stood near a fruit stall, his clothes neat but simple, his smile as warm as she remembered. He had always been there for her in the past, even when she hadn't noticed. But now, seeing him again felt like the last thread of hope she had been desperately seeking. Kibet noticed her immediately. His expression softened, a mix of concern and something else, something deeper that Aisha hadn't dared acknowledge. He walked over slowly, his eyes searching hers for signs of the Aisha he once knew. "Aisha, is it really you?" Aisha, looking away, voice breaking. "I don't know who I am anymore, Kibet. Come with me, let's talk." Kibet took Aisha to a small cafe he frequented. It was quiet, tucked away from the busy streets, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. As they sat down, Aisha felt her guard begin to lower. "Tell me everything," Kibet said gently, his voice calm but urgent. For the first time in months, Aisha opened up. She spoke of the extravagant promises George had made, the gifts, the glamour of the city, and how she had been so blinded by the life she had always wanted that she ignored the warning signs. She told him about the fear she had felt when George became distant, the control he had over her, and how he had used her to satisfy his own desires, only to discard her when she was no longer useful. She told him about the pain of losing herself, of being trapped in a life she never chose. Kibet didn't say, "I told you so." Instead, he listened with patience and understanding, his presence offering Aisha the space to mourn her losses and reflect on what she had endured. "I'm sorry," Aisha whispered after a long silence. "I didn't see you, not the way I should have." Kibet looked at her, his gaze steady but kind. "I never expected you to, Aisha. But maybe now you can see what's really important." They both sat in quiet contemplation. Kibet had struggled, yes, but he had never lost himself in the pursuit of riches or approval. His life had been simple, but it had been built on integrity, hard work, and family, the values that Aisha had once discarded in pursuit of a fleeting dream. Aisha's redemption was not a sudden transformation, but a slow, steady process. She no longer chased after mirages, no longer believed that happiness could be bought. She had found something far more valuable, the strength to rebuild, the courage to face her past, and the understanding that the most precious things in life could not be measured in gold or status. And as she looked at the horizon, she knew that the future, though uncertain, was something she could now face with an open heart and a clear mind. Aisha's journey teaches us that chasing illusions of success and prosperity can lead to heartbreak and loss. Instead, staying true to oneself, valuing genuine connections, and building a life rooted in honesty and resilience is the path to lasting happiness. Additionally, the story highlights the importance of discernment, self-worth, and the dangers of valuing appearances over substance.